I just wanted to start off quite gently to ease us in. So if you're sitting down, maybe just check if your shoulders are a bit tense. Maybe take a big deep breath in. Let it go. Maybe just check in with your forehead. Relax. Maybe your jaw a bit. You can do this anywhere. If you're in a busy place or walking around, maybe just take a pause to look to your left, look to your right, ease up that neck, maybe tilt the head down one side then the other. I just wanted to have this time for people because sometimes I found with podcasts I get a lot of information and it's amazing information, but then I move on when it's finished and I don't actually integrate it as much as I could have, or maybe wonder why or how it can apply to my life. So I wanted to start this with just a slower introduction, one where we can still ourselves, even if we're on the go, walking around, just check in with how we're feeling. How are you feeling? How are you in your body today? How are you in your mind? I'd really like to know, and I'd really like to know about these episodes. That changes. Tea with me, and I call this podcast that just so that if you are with someone or you are on the phone, you can perhaps use that as a bit of a segue into having some time for yourself. Sometimes it's difficult to ask for time by ourselves, so saying, oh, I'm just having some time for me, having some time for some tea. Hopefully they can allow you that space, or you feel more confident to put that boundary in and have some reflection time. Just a bit of curiosity, really. I know that that's something that I never really did, ever. Especially after college. You get into the working world and it's one job after the other, especially in the industry that I'm in. And that is, yes, the dance industry, the arts industry, acting, singing, all of the above. And I will speak a little bit about my journey, but I think this first episode is mainly just to create a space where you feel that acknowledgement for where you are, how far you've come maybe, something that you've done today that you've been proud of, or that maybe you've been proud of someone else. Maybe it's later in the week, something that you thought of a while ago, but just bringing to mind that sense of gratitude for where we are right now and the effort that you've put in to come here, get to this point, and give some time for yourself. Thank you so much for joining me. Now, as a dancer, I also teach a lot as well, and I'm going to dive right in with some concepts because I feel like they apply to anyone, no matter what industry you're in, no matter what type of person you consider yourself. I think we are all creative innately, and we all want to live a life of excitement, of joy, and that can be anything. So the one concept I wanted to start with was this idea that we should potentially, from one perspective, wait for a better opportunity, or wait for an opportunity that we think is more aligned to our goal, or something that is more of within the picture that we see ourselves in the future. And I think there's a story to that. And it just depends on what your story comes from. And for some people, it might be the story of, oh, I feel like I need to be in the future now, if that makes sense. My next step needs to be the biggest goal, the biggest reward, or the biggest idea of what success is. And if it's not, then I won't take that action, or I won't answer that call, or I won't go for that opportunity. And I think from my experience, that has very much limited me to a kind of mentality that's quite egotistical, only in the way of being obsessed with one outcome and one goal, when I think realistically we have loads. And not just professionally, but also in our lives, with our relationships, with our family, with our friends, with our community, with the environment. And I think sometimes we have a story that our success needs to come as quick as it possibly can, when in reality, redefining your story of success, I think, can be really helpful to find a greater, deeper feeling of acceptance and fulfillment for that little one step in any direction. I don't think it needs to be a direction that fulfills this big insurmountable goal, but just taking a step in one direction. That obviously isn't something that you perhaps loathe. Maybe it's more that it might be uncomfortable, it might be something new. But to realise that everything new is uncomfortable in some way, because you haven't done it yet. So the idea of waiting is actually more comfortable. And I think it tends to take you on a bit of a different path that can diminish confidence in some ways, because taking a decision or a step towards something new that's uncomfortable, or that can be uncomfortable, is a valuable life experience that we've already done so many times in our lives before. We have spoken to a new person at school, or we have spoken to someone on the bus, or helped, a stranger across the road, or even interacted with friends of friends or family members who we don't see that often, and it has been uncomfortable, but we've done it, and we've greatly succeeded in those interactions. So I think applying that to our career relationships, or our community relationships, or our money relationships even being curious about what could be on the other side, rather than I know what could be on the other side and it's not my story of success that I want to follow. Because I don't think anyone who is in a position of success that you see or that you admire has ever known exactly how things have turned out. I think it's quite rare that that happens. And if it does, amazing. Let me know. If things have just always turned out exactly as you imagined, I think it'd be really interesting to hear that story as well. But for most of us, the confidence in taking a new step in a direction that feels somewhat in the right space, in the right motivation. You know, you have motivation to take that step for some reason. But don't let your mind get in the way of that. I think don't have this idea of how things are going to turn out eventually. And you will hopefully surprise yourself. So I think that's the first kind of recognition that if you are considering whether or not to do something, just check in. Am I doing this because I see it being part of a story and something I should do, or something that perhaps someone else has told me to do? Or is this a good decision because I actually don't know what the outcome is, but I feel like it could give me something new on the inside, could give me a life experience. Everything is a life experience. Even if you're actually waiting for another opportunity, that waiting will give you a life experience. It will just be a different one that perhaps results in not necessarily a fulfilled confidence in yourself. And I know that's something that I struggled with a lot when I was a freelancer. There would be so many opportunities that I actually didn't go for because I'd say to myself, I'm waiting for this certain company to audition, or I'm waiting for this certain company to have another project, or even one of the dancers in that company to, you know, be injured for me to be there. Those stories were what I was telling myself. And it wasn't until a lot later I realised that the reason actually I wasn't going for those things was because I was scared. I was so underconfident. I had zero faith in myself. And it felt so much more empowering for me to not take action than to take action, which had the adverse effect. So by not making those decisions about completely different opportunities, I didn't get to explore parts of life that I could have. And this isn't coming from a place of regret at all. I'm so grateful that I actually did have that insecure time, because it was from there that I grew in confidence. And it was from there, from very low places, that I managed to have the experiences that took me on a different journey. And I guess I found that one of the biggest things that I learnt was the more that I took action, the more that I made the decisions to do something that weren't aligned with a story I told myself, but that were aligned with a confidence to just do the step, do the thing, like whatever it was. And that might even be called a family member, you know? That was quite scary to me at one point. So as soon as I got over that hurdle, as soon as I made that decision, as soon as I took that action, regardless of the outcome, I felt so much more confident. I found that my insecurities weren't that big, and that I had so much more to it, but that I was now able to just stop, So that is how much it's been. Don't hold yourself back. Don't get in your own way because of a story that you are telling yourself. And these stories aren't bad. These stories have come to us from the way the industry works, the way our parents have raised us, the way our school, our society speaks about certain things. These stories exist. They're sort of social conversations that exist in our generations. and they influx, and you see how a certain generation, like your parents for example, may speak about their certain values or understandings of life, and you go, what? That's completely the opposite to what I think. And that's okay, because that's their experience, that's their social conversation, and we have ours as well. But it's whether we choose to invest in it or not. And some of them can be very beneficial. Some of them can help us reach for the stars, and love makes the world go round, and don't ever stop believing in yourself. They're pretty great social conversations. And I guess I want to encourage maybe more of those, and less of the ones that prevent us from doing something just because we want to, or doing something that we feel like is right, and there's a story that might tell us it might turn out in a certain way, but realistically we will never know. We will never know how it turns out until we take that step. So whatever it is that you feel like you would benefit from, or you feel like is gonna project you into your goal, just take that one step and try to eradicate that goal or that story from being behind the motivation. And I found that that's the best way to move forward, because this comes back to when we're in really hard times, and suddenly those steps aren't small anymore, they're massive. And when you're going through pain, and when you're going through shame or guilt or grief, that one tiny step that you used to just think, I'll do it tomorrow, it now feels like it could take weeks. So give yourself the permission now to invest in yourself, and not in the stories that society or that your parents or that school or that your friends or that people you don't even like or even know are telling you. People on social media or strangers, whoever it is. So I just want to empower you to do that. And when times are tough, and some of you listening to this now might have something in the back of your mind that's going on, or might be right in front of you that's going on right now, and you think, well, that small step is absolutely huge. It's okay to acknowledge that difference. And it's okay to take your time to take that step, as long as it's for you and it's not for someone else, or for another version or another story of what your life should or shouldn't be like. So I think I've got most of that out about right. Please let me know. And I just want to finish with a moment for you to maybe take another deep breath in, let it all go, have a little nod and a little smile to yourself that you're going to do that one thing that came to your mind during listening to this. Because you can do it. I believe in you, and so many other people believe in you. And if you had a friend who felt like you did, you'd probably tell them to do the same thing. So thank you so much for listening. I'm going to leave the music playing just a little bit so that maybe you can breathe and give you time to journal down, write down what those steps could be. Maybe write down a story or two that you might have been telling yourself. And as you write it down, maybe it fits, maybe it doesn't. Just take or leave whatever you felt like today. It might not resonate with you at all, and that's fine. Maybe someone popped into your head who it might, so share this with a friend or with a family member. And thank you so much for listening.